Do you really think someone like you belongs here? You're completely out of place. It seems you don't understand where you stand. This hotel is only for the elite like us. A middle school dropout like you doesn't fit in. Go home. Despite the mean things my classmate Mike said to me, I didn't care. It's because Mike didn't know the truth. I'm called James and I'm in my 30s. I'm about to tell you about things that happened in the past. My family was very poor, so ever since I started elementary school, I was ridiculed by those around me. It was because my clothes were obviously hand-me-downs and worn out. So, everyone laughed and called me a poor person. By the time you're in elementary school, you start to distinguish which families are wealthy and which are poor. Families who can afford to buy the latest games and bicycles for their kids are considered rich, while those who have nothing are seen as poor. I was an only child, but we were a single-parent family, and my mother was struggling to keep our living, so I hardly had any toys. My parents divorced before I was fully aware, and it seems my mother never received any child support. According to my mother, my father was unfaithful and cheated a lot, and despite her repeated warnings, he never changed. Fed up, my mother decided to leave home with me. My father was a terrible person who probably didn't care about us at all. I've never met him since the divorce and didn't want to. I didn't care about a father who made my mother suffer, especially since it was unlikely he would ever apologize. So, my mother worked multiple jobs for my sake, but had to reduce her workload when she fell ill. I was a growing boy, and with my mother's low income, we couldn't afford luxuries. While other families had cakes for birthdays and Christmas, we never had such things at our home. Believing in Santa, I hung my stocking and made a wish, but woke up to find it empty, realizing that Santa doesn't visit poor kids' homes. Later, understanding that Santa was actually the parents, I felt the harsh reality of our situation. Among the boys who teased me, I particularly despised a boy named Mike. Mike came from a wealthy family and always bragged about his possessions. For instance, the latest gaming console his father bought him, or the expensive clothes his mother got for him. Mike was probably the only one who came to school in branded clothes, so both the girls and boys would all say, "Wow, that's amazing," and praise him. The other day, I went to the department store with my mom and got this shirt and pants. Cool, right? They cost $500 in total. Well, my family is rich, so it's expected. There he goes again. Hey, James, your clothes are so lame. Where did you buy them? From a supermarket, perhaps? Well, yes, but so what? Give me a break. Who buys clothes at a supermarket? That's for groceries. Well, my mom only shops at high-end stores. But I guess your family can only afford Walmart, right? What's wrong with Walmart? They have tasty snacks. I would never eat cheap supermarket snacks. I only eat the high-end snacks my mom chooses. Don't compare your family to mine. Mike's family was indeed wealthy, and I remember being shocked by their gigantic house when I saw it once. Mike's father was a business owner and seemed to be doing quite well financially. That's probably why he could afford to buy anything his family desired without causing them any hardship. Yet, seeing Mike belittling others, I couldn't help but think his education was a failure. Mike seemed to enjoy looking down on me, criticizing everything I had. The clothes and shoes my mother bought for me, even my school bag, he ridiculed them all, which made me incredibly angry. One time, Mike aggressively scratched my backpack. Angry that he had damaged the backpack my mother had worked hard to buy for me, I confronted him. "What did you do? Look, it's scratched. My mom bought this for me." But isn't that obviously cheap? Who cares about something like that? My stuff is high-end. This is the most expensive thing from the department store. That's not the point. Do you think it's okay to damage other people's belongings? That's the worst. You should pay for this. What? How dare you talk to me like that? acting all high and mighty for a poor kid. So what? It's not you who's great. It's your dad who's the CEO. There's nothing great about being the kid, Mike. Don't get ahead of yourself. I've always been pretty assertive, so I wasn't just going to take the bullying for nothing. But maybe that got under his skin, because Mike flew into a rage and started hurling insults at me. He also resorted to throwing sand from the playground at me as a form of harassment. Things escalated, and I began to dread dealing with someone like Mike. It felt like a waste of time to engage with someone like him, and I was planning to ignore him from then on. However, he seemed to be fixated on me, constantly provoking me whenever he could. I couldn't stand it. "Hee, I stole your pencil case. Hey, give it back. What are you doing? Wow, all the pencils inside are so short. Can't afford new ones. That's sad. Poor people can't even buy pencils. I'm glad I'm rich. Anything I want, my mom and dad buy for me. Hey, give it back already." As Mike and I scuffled, we got caught on a desk and fell over. The desk crashed down and hit Mike's arm, causing him to hold it in pain. I realized I was in trouble, but everyone was whispering and looking at me. They must have thought I injured him on purpose. But it was not intentional. I was just trying to stop Mike's foolishness. However, in our elementary school class, everyone disliked me because I was poor, and they told our teacher, Mr. Thompson, that I did it on purpose. So, I was reprimanded by Mr. Thompson without a chance to defend myself. My mother was called to the school, and I felt terrible. She apologized repeatedly and looked like she was about to cry. I never wanted to put her through this. We even went to apologize to Mike's family, but they were furious. It was just a minor bruise, nothing serious. But it all started because Mike stole my pencil case and teased me. For the first time, I realized how unfair the world could be. It was frustrating to see everyone siding with Mike, the rich kid. I always wondered why I had to go through this just because I was poor. I wasn't causing trouble for anyone by being poor. I was trying my best to live every day. Having to make my mother apologize was a huge shock to me, but Mike seemed unfazed. In fact, he was spreading rumors that I deliberately knocked over the desk to hurt him. Then, we entered middle school and ended up in the same class again. Mike had apparently tried for private middle schools but didn't get in anywhere, so he ended up at the local public middle school. He wasn't that bright, just wealthy, which I kind of expected. But Mike was making excuses like I was just 1 point away from passing, which seemed rather pathetic. Even after we started middle school, Mike continued to tease me and, along with other boys, mocked my lunch. They called the lunch my mom made for me poor looking. What's this? That sandwich has no ham in it. How can you eat this? Isn't this worse than animal feed? Hey, just give it back. No way. If you say please return it, Lord Mike, I might consider it. Who would say that? Hey, you think a poor kid like you can talk back to me? Do you know who I am? The son of the CEO of Adams Corporation. So what? You're always bragging about your parents, but you yourself aren't impressive at all. You ended up here because you failed to get into a boys' school. Say that again, I dare you. I'll say it as many times as you want. Despite being a rich kid, you couldn't get into middle school because you're not smart. All right, tough luck. This is what happens to someone who can't apologize. Mike dumped my lunch on the floor and burst out laughing. I was so shocked that I froze and couldn't do anything. I admit I might have gone too far, but Mike was the one who started it. I wondered if this wouldn't have happened if I had been more submissive. But I didn't want to just take it one-sidedly, and I've always been pretty assertive, so I couldn't help but talk back. Then, in our third year of middle school, everyone started to seriously consider their future paths. Mike was told by our homeroom teacher, Mr. Carter, that he had no chance at prestigious private high schools, so he lowered his sights to a certain private school. I couldn't even dream of attending a private high school, and I was even debating whether to go to a public one. My mother had become more frail than before, and I knew she was pushing herself to work. Her complexion was always poor, pale as clay, making me fear she might pass away someday. I felt guilty making her work so hard for me, so I thought it would be better to start working right after middle school. But Mr. Carter was a bit surprised when he heard I wanted to work instead of going to high school, considering my decent grades. I've decided not to go to high school but to work instead. I really want to start earning as soon as possible to ease my mother's burden. Well, I can understand that, but James, your grades are decent, and you could do well in high school. Are you sure that's not an option? Yes, that's an academic school, and I don't think they focus much on job placement. You know, vocational schools are said to be better for getting jobs, but academic schools focus on preparing students for university. I don't even have time to get qualifications at a vocational school. I want to start working right away to bring money home. So, I really prefer to find a job. I see, it might be a tough path, but if that's what you want, James, I'll support you. Thank you, I'll do my best. And so, I graduated. Everyone seemed happy with their high school placements, but I was the only one in my grade who went straight to work. Mike smirked when he found out I would be working right after middle school, and started taunting me again. So, you're working right after middle school, huh? Well, do your best. People at the bottom have no choice but to get by somehow. So what? Good for you for getting into high school. I thought you wouldn't make it anywhere. What did you say, you infuriating jerk? Just you wait. A middle school dropout like you will get tired and thrown out soon enough. Well, cling to your job as long as you can. I was planning to do that without you telling me. See ya. I started working as a full-time employee at a certain inn in April. It was a live-in job where I handled guest services. The landlady was strict but treated me like her own son. I heard that the landlady had lost her son to an illness before. Apparently, her son was about my age when he passed away, which is why I think she dotes on me so much. James, thank you for your polite service. A guest earlier was praising you, saying you're friendly, energetic, and cheerful. I'm grateful to hear that. I'm still getting used to a lot of things, but it's very encouraging to be complimented by guests. I'll keep doing my best. It's about time for your break. Oh, and there's some chocolate cake you like in the break room. Really? Is that okay? Yes, it's a little thank you for always working hard. The landlady sometimes bought me cake, probably using her own money. Having hardly ever eaten cake when living with my mom, it was incredibly touching. My salary wasn't much, given I was a middle school graduate, but living on site meant most of my basic needs were covered, so it was sufficient. This allowed me to send money to my mother. I didn't have much else to spend on, so I sent my salary to my mom, hoping she could enjoy some nice food. James, a banquet is starting soon, and it'll get busy, but please take care of the guests over there. Yes, understood. Mr. Smith, right. Yes, Mr. Smith, and please take care of Mrs. Miller as well. Understood. I'll be on my way. The landlady was always efficient and impressive to watch. I wanted to become competent like her, but there was still so much I wasn't used to. Fortunately, I had plenty of support around me, so I managed to keep up with my work. Though I was sometimes strictly reprimanded, I knew it was for my own good. That's why I was able to endure and strive to grow. One time, I went back to my hometown. It was when I turned 30. The family home was actually a small, run-down apartment. My mom had reduced her part-time shifts, and she looked a bit healthier. There were several envelopes on the dining table, and one of them turned out to be a notice for reunion. It was a middle school reunion scheduled at a fancy hotel, but I somehow didn't feel like going. However, the sender was Mr. Carter, so I thought maybe I should attend. Mr. Carter was always on my side, always looking out for me. He supported me when I said I wanted to work after middle school, and even after I started working, he would check in on me now and then. A teacher organizing the reunion is rare, but I do want to see him. It's been a long time. I wonder how Mr. Carter is doing now. When I was 15, Mr. Carter was about 30, still quite young. He was my age back then, but probably more put together. That's what I find myself thinking. Now that I'm 30, Mr. Carter would be 45. He's at an age where one might call him an old guy, but Mr. Carter had a youthful face even at 30, so I imagine he still looks young. Wanting to see Mr. Carter, I marked "will attend" on the reply slip and sent it back. On the day of the reunion, I headed to the fancy hotel with nervous anticipation. I wondered how everyone had grown up. Walking inside, I made my way to the banquet hall, the venue for the reunion. I could hear the bustling voices of everyone and thought, not much has changed since middle school. Both the guys and girls were chatting happily, a nostalgic scene. My middle school days weren't great, but I was somewhat happy to see everyone. Above all, I wanted to meet Mr. Carter and thank him for his support. I took my seat according to the seating chart. Then, a guy approached me. I recognized him immediately as Mike. He was the only one with such a mean look on his face. "Hey, long time no see. You're James, right? How's life as a middle school grad?" It's okay, I guess." "Really? Just okay? Well, I guess you live in extreme poverty every day. You were always poor after all. I'm set to take over my dad's business. They even call me the heir at the company. I'm the future president after all." "Oh, is that so?" It seemed Mike had joined his father's company and was being groomed as the successor. The thought of him coming over just to boast about this made me feel weary. I'd rather look for Mr. Carter and express my gratitude than listen to Mike's pointless bragging. Glancing around, I spotted a slightly gray-haired man. That must be Mr. Carter. He hadn't changed much in height or build, and I could recognize him from the back. I got up and approached Mr. Carter. "Mr. Carter, it's been a long time. I'm James." "Oh, James, how have you been?" "Keeping well." "Yes, thanks to you. I'm busy every day, but it's fulfilling." "That's good to hear. I always worried you might be overworking yourself since you're such a hard worker, but if you're healthy, that's great." "Yes, I'm doing well." At that moment, Mike approached again, smirking. He was probably about to say something mean again. "Why don't you just leave? You're annoying." "What? Why all of a sudden? Do you really think someone like you belongs here? You're completely out of place. It seems you don't know your own standing." "Ha ha ha. This hotel is only for the chosen ones like us. A middle school dropout like you doesn't fit in. Go home." "I don't understand what you're saying. If I'm such an eyesore, why don't you leave? You little, who do you think you're talking to? I'm the son of a president. There's no comparison between me and a middle school dropout. Just disappear. Can't you see you're out of place?" That's when Mr. Carter spoke up. "What are you talking about? This hotel. James is the manager here." "What, really? You might not know this, but James has been recognized for his work and became the manager of this hotel. So he's far from being out of place here." "That's impossible. He's just a useless middle school dropout, incapable of succeeding anywhere. There's no way a middle school dropout could become a hotel manager. I've never heard of such a thing. Whether you've heard of it or not, it's a fact. I started off doing menial tasks editing, but my hard work there was recognized. And now I'm in this position. This Grand Palace Resort was actually established by the inn I used to work for." "What are you talking about? Initially, we were only managing the inn, but then we decided to create something more upscale, like 5-star urban luxury hotels and resorts. That's how I ended up being appointed as the manager of this Grand Palace Resort." They saw my hospitality skills and manners developed at the end and asked me to take on this role. Mike was utterly astonished, his eyes wide with disbelief. Actually, I am the manager of this Grand Palace Resort, a luxury hotel. It's a 5-star hotel, and it was created by the parent company of the inn where I first worked. Until now, we had only managed inns, but we decided to move into providing high-class urban accommodations and started constructing 5-star hotels. When looking for the right talent, I was chosen. I was surprised to be selected, but I was happy that my efforts were recognized. I thought I would always be stuck in low-level jobs, but the landlady had been watching me closely. "You're too good to be just doing odd jobs here forever. You should go to the Grand Palace Resort next. It will be lonely without you. But it's for your own good, James. Thank you for all your hard work. Keep your spirits up when you're there. I'm grateful to have worked here. I've seen many guests happy, and I've always been treated well by you and everyone else. I believe I've been able to do my best thanks to everyone here, so I'll keep doing my best in the next chapter too. Remember, you can always reach out if things get tough. Remember that everyone here is rooting for you. Just think of that and get back on track. Your mother would be proud to see how much you've grown." Yes, my mother was overjoyed when I became the manager. I couldn't have reached this point on my own. I don't even know how to begin thanking everyone, but thinking about not seeing everyone again makes me sad. Hey, no crying now. This is a celebration. Cheer up, or you'll make me cry too. Right? It's a good thing. I'll keep going with a positive attitude. Thanks to the landlady's recommendation, I made an unusual career move. It was unprecedented for a middle school graduate to become a manager of a luxury hotel, but I was highly valued for my contributions. I've always been blessed with supportive people. During my time at the inn, the landlady and the staff cared for me, and I received numerous letters from Mr. Carter. Knowing so many people truly cared about me made my past as a middle school dropout seem insignificant. Mike apparently went to a decent university, but his character was deeply flawed. People who look down on others and take pleasure in belittling them are unlikely to earn respect from anyone. When Mr. Carter stood up for me, Mike was so angry he trembled. I don't know why Mike was so mad, but I felt more justified in being angry after being belittled by him. Perhaps he was looking forward to seeing me cry and run away, so finding out I was the manager must have been a blow to his ego. He must have been frustrated to see someone he looked down on succeed. Mike, in frustration, started bothering others and bad-mouthing me. However, our matured classmates did not appreciate Mike's behavior and warned him. Annoyed by their disapproval, Mike got defensive and loud. Eventually, after being told he was being a nuisance, he sheepishly left. He's still acting like a child. Well, if he can acknowledge James's efforts, it's no surprise people think he hasn't grown up. Right? I wouldn't want to be like him. I was mocked in middle school, but I never thought he'd still be so malicious. Anyway, it's good to see you're doing well, James. Although we've been exchanging letters, it's reassuring to see you in person. You tend to overdo things, so I've been worried. How's the hotel job going? Thanks to you, it's going smoothly. There are tough times, but I enjoy the work more than anything. That's good to hear. Remember, if things get hard, you can always talk to me. You're not a middle schooler anymore. But you're still an important former student to me, so don't hesitate to reach out. Then, I met a woman. She was visiting with a friend and was earnestly searching for a lost item. No staff member could find it, but I stumbled upon it by chance. When I returned the lost item to her, she was delighted. Her name was Emily, and she was beautiful. The handkerchief she lost, given by her mother, was very precious to her. Her mother had passed away, but she had given Emily the handkerchief just before her death. Thank you so much for finding it. This was the last thing my mother gave me. So it's very precious. It might look like a dirty old handkerchief, but it's a cherished keepsake to me. Not at all. I'm honored to have been of help. I'm glad you found your precious item. And somehow, Emily and I started dating. She pursued me earnestly, and eventually, I gave in. I wondered if it was okay to develop this kind of relationship with a guest, but since we coincidentally met on my day off, it must be fate. Emily wanted to express her gratitude to me and invited me out for a meal. She still seemed pleased about that handkerchief, giving me the impression that she's a very sincere person. I'm really glad to be dating you. After all, it's rare to find someone as dedicated to their work as you are. You're such a hard worker. And I aspire to be like that too. Is that so? But there's something important I need to tell you. I'm sorry for keeping it quiet, but the truth is, I never made it to high school. Aren't you worried about having a future with someone like me? You only went to middle school. Yes. When Emily momentarily looked frozen, I thought she must have been put off. After all, lacking an education could be a significant drawback when considering marriage in the future. But that wasn't the case with Emily. Wow, but I hope this doesn't sound rude. Becoming a manager despite not even going to high school is quite impressive. You must have worked very hard. You really do give your all in everything, don't you? Really. You're not put off. I mean, when you think about the future, some might prefer a college-educated elite, right? I once dated a college graduate who was set to become the next CEO of a certain company, but he was incredibly self-centered. He seemed to enjoy looking down on others, and I was fed up with it. I prefer someone who is currently striving hard over someone like that. Educational background varies from person to person, and it shouldn't dictate how one lives their life. Is that so? I'm glad to hear that. I couldn't help but wonder if Emily's ex-boyfriend might have been Mike. I didn't want to pry too deeply or remind her of unpleasant memories, so I remained silent. Emily seemed to trust and think highly of me. I may not be as accomplished as she believes, but I am determined to become a man worthy of her expectations. A year later, we get married. Emily's parents approved of me, which was incredibly gratifying. I was concerned they might be unhappy about their daughter marrying a man without even a high school diploma, but they said, "Education is just one of many measures and doesn't define a person." My mother also took a great liking to Emily, treating her as if she were her own daughter. Emily's cheerful and friendly nature must make her well liked by everyone. We even invited Mr. Carter to our wedding. Mr. Carter cried as if it were his own child getting married. "I'm so glad you found such a wonderful wife. Nothing makes me happier than seeing you happy." "Mr. Carter, you are crying too much." "Well, I'm happy to be married to Emily too. I'm looking forward to building a good family life." If you ever make your wife cry, I won't let it go. Just work hard every day and live happily as a couple. Yes, I will do just that. And so, our new life together began. Both Emily and I are working, and as the manager, my days are busy, but we help each other out with household chores. I don't want to burden Emily alone, and am willing to do anything I can. Having been raised in a single-parent household, I'm fairly capable around the house, and during my live-in work at the inn. I even did my own ironing. I'm grateful that the hardships I've faced have turned out to be valuable experiences. Despite the busyness, my life is fulfilling. This is a testament to my efforts and thanks to my wife, Emily. We will continue to join forces and overcome anything that comes our way.